What's up, everyone? Hope you're all having an awesome weekend. I could tell you that there is some rhyme and reason to how I choose to cover my films, but that would be a lie. One way or the other, today I'm talking about Death Warrant, the 1990 Van Damme prison thriller directed by Darren Sarafian. This came out at a time when Van Damme movies still had semi-decent production values and halfway competent talent involved, which ends up benefiting the movie a lot because I actually enjoyed this a lot more just as a movie than I thought I would. I think I saw it on cable way back in the day or something like that, but this was the first time I'd given it like a full-on look. It's still a Van Damme thriller with some of the obligatory show-off fight scenes and goofy tropes, but they do actually have a halfway interesting story here. The movie does actually take its narrative seriously, or at least, seriously enough to make a coherent movie. It's not just a laundry line to hang a bunch of fight scenes on. And a lot of the action in this movie does actually involve Van Damme fighting in close quarters with people and having to sort of outsmart people and kind of maneuver around a little bit more in ways that he can't when he can just fight out in the open. The whole concept of this corrupt prison being a front for a black market organ trading ring is really cool. That's a lot of fun. The backstory about how one of the guys in the ruling circle of that ring came to sort of form it because he desperately needed to get an organ for his wife. That's actually a halfway relatable reason for doing something like this. It feels appropriately tragic that someone doing a bad thing for a good reason ends up spiraling into continuing to do a bad thing for bad reasons because of the money involved. Especially with doctors involved, the more I think about it, this entire premise about black market organ trading could almost make for a good elevator pitch about, Breaking Bad in a prison or something like that. But all that is more or less peripheral. This is still a hero saves the day story, and Van Damme is the hero, so that's where our focus lies. As much as Van Damme gets roasted for his acting a lot of the time, I honestly think that he had more depth than he was often credited for. I'm not saying that he was some overlooked Pacino or De Niro or something like that, but I think he had a more competent ability than, people recognize most of the time. And he's quite convincing here, and especially in scenes, the majority of the movie, in fact, when he's in the prison and he's a cop pretending to be a prisoner, he sells that whole sort of double identity thing pretty well. There's a lot of scenes where he does a good job of saying one thing, and meanwhile his cop brain is thinking something else. For the most part, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, this is a Van Damme movie, and you get one particularly silly moment when the camera's circling him. It's well shot, but nevertheless, where he's just raising his arms in what is supposed to be rage, and it is clearly blatantly just a pure excuse for this guy to flex for the camera. Although it makes for a great punchline to the moment when that wrench comes hurtling out of the mist and smokes him right in the face. That's actually a recurring problem in this movie. Both Van Damme and the villain, the Sandman, very well played by Patrick Kilpatrick, by the way. They both make the mistake of flexing and leaving themselves wide open at a crucial moment. I just mentioned Van Damme's, and then with the Sandman in the climactic fight at the end of the movie, he opens that furnace, rip-roaring flames everywhere, and just turns around and stands in front of it and says, "Welcome to hell! Kick me, I'm a moron!" Of course he gets booted right into the furnace, then comes rolling back out, only to just stand up and flex again and get kicked squarely in the chest again. Sandman just cannot stop stroking himself in this movie, man. It is ridiculous. Now, to give credit where it is due on a more serious note, Kilpatrick plays the Sandman very well. This guy is sincerely scary. He's legitimately intimidating. He just has this cold, ethereal, almost otherworldly look about him that is distinct and just constantly uncomfortable to look at. It's this weird thing where he's fascinating and repellent at the same time. You really believe he's evil and dangerous. With a performance like this, he could have played Judge Holden if they ever made a Blood Meridian movie. I also appreciated how they fully pay off his character as well. From the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie, he is the antagonistic focal point. This isn't one of those movies set in a prison where there's a red herring bad guy out of nowhere. Van Damme has to deal with some other bad people while he's in this prison, no question, but it's all tied back to the Sandman, ultimately. That makes this movie a lot more genuinely suspenseful than your average meat and potatoes Van Damme movie. The one other thing that really stood out to me, and I'm not sure whether this is a good or a bad thing, I think it's mainly a good thing because I was entertained, essentially. But this prison, man, it's so off-the-chain, cartoonish, and anarchic that it makes that Stallone movie Lockup look like a documentary. It's like Emerald City in Oz with a 2-drink minimum, seriously. There are apparently entire floor levels of this prison where no guards go. Weapons and heavy machinery and tools are just left out in the open for them to play with. Every ethnic gang is apparently left to just convert their corner of the prison into a glorified village, with gallon jugs of moonshine at the ready with a snap of your fingers, plus a character who's pimping out trans prostitutes from the comfort of his cashmere bed in his cell, apparently. Whatever your vice is, it's probably easier to get a fix on it there than it is on the street, you know what I mean? Like, Christ, if I was a criminal living in this universe, this would make me want to just rob a liquor store and turn myself in. Even though this is not a typical Van Damme movie, it is a Van Damme movie, and we get a cynically happy ending where he hops down the steps, makes out with the girl shirtless. Apparently nobody gave him a clean shirt or a towel or a robe or anything. And yeah, they just go on about their day. But then again, his character in this one is Canadian, and as a Canadian myself, I can tell you that colder climates do have a way of making you a little more nonchalant sometimes. So there you go. He was method acting. So while this isn't high art, it is made with a little more care and effort than your average 90s thriller along these lines. And playful, somewhat cartoonish thrillers like this are just good medicine sometimes. So I would say, if you haven't seen this one before, it's worth a go. That's all for now. I'm off to find a movie that's less tasteful. Hope you're all enjoying your Saturday evening, and look for more content coming your way soon. See ya.